churches, and so full. Unfortunately, is it the case that church attendance equals faithfulness? It doesn't in some cases, does it? So that is a little bit of a worry. Are all those people who attend church very regularly also Christians? There are social reasons for coming to church, especially. I wish it were true that simple church attendance equaled faithfulness. If it was, we could invite all the great unwashed in here for a carol service once a year, and they'd remain Christian till next December. Doesn't quite work like that, does it? No. Wish it did. As you go round Zambia, I've had the privilege, just recently, somebody else was driving me for a change. I did enjoy that. And it leaves you leisure to look out the windows and see what's going on. And it's notable that there are biblical references everywhere. Everywhere, biblical references. I remember we passed one shop, and the name of the shop is emblazoned upon the top of it. It's the Genesis Experience Shop, which led me to ask the question, what is a Genesis experience? If you go into that shop and buy an apple, will you be thrown out and never be allowed back in? If you make a purchase in that shop, does it mean you have to walk away without looking back, or be turned into a pillar of salt? Knowing Zambian shop assistants, you might have to promise to sacrifice your firstborn in order to get their attention. People want to have a biblical reference on their shop or business. Are they putting any thought in that? Is it actually a true expression of faith, or is it taking the name of the Lord in vain? We passed one minibus. Now, they don't have big buses by and large, exactly like we have. 44 seaters, that's a single decker, isn't it? Or 76, I think, the double deckers. They're minibuses. And they zoom about, and they're all driven by maniacs. Invariably. Apparently, I was told that policemen buy the minibus to get fired. Another policeman stops the minibus, they said, yes, this belongs to so-and-so. Anyway, on the back of this bus, it said, travel with Jesus. And I'd have thought about that, and I thought that was a bit worrying, really. Is the driver really so awful that you need a divine presence with you to get to your destination? I did conclude, of course, it might be useful if the bridge is out and you just drive across the water. But my point is that expression of faith might be very worthy, but is it from the Spirit, or is it just a community thing, keeping up with your neighbours? It's easy to take the name of the Lord in vain. People say things like, oh God. Now, that could be a prayer. It could be, oh God. But most of the time it won't be what. Or, Lord help us. Often said in exasperation, oh Lord help us. Not Lord help us. People say things like, God give me strength, when they're exasperated, don't they? I've known a lot of teachers to say, God give me patience. But it's not very often a prayer. Of course, there are swear words. I'm not going to repeat them. But most of them are just swear words. They're nothing. They're not blasphemy. The word bloody, of course, is because it's a contraction of by Our Lady, which you would have heard in its full form right through medieval times, up through Tudor and into Stuart times. The French don't tend to use a lot of scatological swear words. They are there, but they don't tend to. They do tend, I'm afraid, to blaspheme. Now, my generation, you might have heard someone say calice, which means chalice. It's what France being a Catholic country, it's the chalice that holds the wine. In my father's generation, you might have heard Frenchmen say sacré morceau, literally the sacred good blood of Christ. But that's taken the name of the Lord in vain. Coming back to our reading, coming back to James, he begins with, not many of you should become teachers. As a teacher, I can relate to that. Of course, he's talking about teaching faith and teaching scripture. As teachers like to work, we need to be accurate. We need to be part of the truth. We should be always mindful that we are moulding young minds. I worked in a big school many years ago where I was head of science, and I had 15 teachers in the science department. And one of them, I recall, was a truly excellent physicist. If I wanted something explained about physics, I'd go to him, and he could make it very clear. He had great depth of knowledge. Unfortunately, he was a useless teacher in terms of classroom control. So, as a head of science, you always wanted to poach a few good classes for yourself. But I had to give him all the A-level physics classes, the top strands of GCSE classes, because the others would riot with him. He had great knowledge. He had a great deal to impart, but most of the time he couldn't do it. So here was me, head of science. I was taking all the lower level classes because they didn't riot with me. That's not because I was Mr. Strictest then, because I never was. I couldn't bear to be down like this on classes all day, every day. Oh no. My answer was to make sure they were interested, make sure they wanted to be in my class, make sure they were having fun. And then I can remember, one of the troublemakers at the back started off, and one of his mates saying, "Shut up, I won't listen to this." Went to church in Zambia. One of our relatives is the minister at a local church, and he wasn't preaching that particular Sunday. Another chap got up to preach that Sunday. Golly, he went all round the houses. All round the houses. He took us for a trip up to Zambezi as well. 70 minutes he preached for. 70 minutes. I followed everything he said, and there were gems of wisdom in there. They just moved it on and on and on. Never mind the quality, feel the width. I attended what they call prayer groups with the family at the lodge where we were staying. And it's not what I would call a prayer group, actually, because there was a prayer at the beginning, a prayer at the end, and basically the rest of it was Bible study, actually. Nothing wrong with Bible study. But they would choose entirely inappropriate pieces of scripture for a group to discuss. A prayer group or Bible study needs to be led by somebody who has got a good knowledge of the Bible, yes, you do, but also the ability to channel the group towards an outcome. There was a whole chapter of Leviticus that someone chose, and it's the one about not eating blood. And what can a group of people who are not theologians really get out of that? You know, and there was, yes, Matthew 17 chosen, and just the whole chapter. And I looked at that and I thought, I know this chapter. But I looked at that, and there are 4 or 5 teaching points, depending how you break it up, that you could use to write a whole sermon. And I did make it clear that actually I wasn't going to address the whole chapter. I just picked on the first teaching point, which happened to be the one that Jesus is saying that you need to be childlike to get into the kingdom of heaven. My father-in-law likes the sound of his own voice. He is a former politician who he held high ministries in former Saudi governments, cabinet minister, and he does, like any politician, quite enjoy the sound of his own voice. And he would go on wandering around in circles about whatever scripture had been chosen, and mind you, after I'd heard the gentleman who spent 70 minutes in his sermon, I did say to Alice, never complain about your father again. These are examples of the tongue getting away with itself. The reason why James is saying not many of you should become teachers is because you've got to have knowledge, you've got to have God-granted wisdom, and you've got to have the skills to impart it. It's not just a talking shop. Then we get on to the section where James is really in a bait. He's really, really, really cross about something. He's got a bee in his bonnet, whatever you want to call it. He's going to make this point. But he's going to make the point that the tongue can be the enemy of faith and the enemy of spirituality. Someone said something out of place, didn't they? He'd heard someone saying something that they really shouldn't, and he was righteously cross about it and wanted to make it absolutely clear that you've got to think before you speak. He is talking about foot-in-mouth disease. How many of us, all of us, I'm sure, have said the wrong thing at the wrong time, or said something before thinking, or got so cross that we've let ourselves rip? There are rifts between people in family. There have been church splits because someone said the wrong thing at the wrong time, or it's been taken out of context. I am mindful. I'm mindful of two things. I remember Ray telling me that for many, many years, his brother would not speak to him. And what I especially remember is Ray saying, I must have said something, but I have no idea what. It's that easy. How many families are riven by, she's not coming in this house, not after what she said about our Maureen. I have in mind for myself as well. I was blessed with a child rather late in life. I'd already been teaching for 20 odd years. It's different with other people's children, I can tell you that. It's not the same with your own children. And I had to learn that if Valeria had done something or said something that annoyed me, I absolutely mustn't take it up with her straight away. I learnt, hard knocks, but I learnt, if Valeria did something that I didn't approve of, or was wound me up, rubbed me up the wrong way, I wouldn't talk to her about it that day. Go away, sleep on it, come back, and I was a much better father the following day than I would have been if I'd been tearing my hair out and jumping up and down when it happened. Incidentally, that applies to partners as well. So don't take the name of the Lord in vain. Don't think after you speak, so you don't end up thinking, I wish I had said that. Take it gently. If you have to reprove someone, we use this phrase a lot, reprove in love. Just make jolly sure that it is in love. Because tongues that praise should not